A seismic upheaval is currently reshaping the American culinary terrain, signaling an era of unprecedented disruption where, in the very months that lie ahead, thousands of restaurant establishments nationwide are poised to permanently extinguish their kitchen lights. This isn't merely the familiar ebb and flow of independent family-operated diners succumbing to localized economic pressures. Rather, we are bearing witness to the potential twilight of giants, the decline of colossal chains that once indisputably dominated the nation's dining scene and carved their identities deep into the American cultural psyche. Names that resonate with decades of shared meals and milestones, from the family seafood feasts at Red Lobster to the casual neighborhood gatherings at Applebee's, and even extending to the ostentatious, gold-leafed extravaganzas of Salt Bay's once viral steakhouse empire, are now perceived to be slowly, inexorably fading towards oblivion. Dear viewers, before continuing this video, we kindly ask you to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, if you want to receive notifications about new video releases, please hit the bell icon. Thank you for your understanding. We will continue now. An event of mass extinction appears to have been triggered within the fiercely competitive restaurant ecosystem, heralding a fundamental and potentially irreversible transformation in the way America eats. If you're comfortably ensconced in the belief that your cherished local outlet for those signature BBQ ribs or your preferred chain's comforting dessert will undoubtedly be serving patrons well into the next year, a rude awakening may unfortunately be in store. The unsettling truth is that a significant cohort of America's largest and most historically resilient restaurant chains are currently navigating a treacherous and uncertain path, with a considerable number facing the very real prospect of disappearing entirely from our commercial landscapes by the time 2025 concludes. The complex forces propelling this dramatic unraveling are manifold, extending far beyond simplistic explanations of financial mismanagement or transient market fluctuations. What is truly unfolding is the systemic collapse of an entire, long-established way of American life, a mode of dining and consumption that, for a confluence of evolving economic, social, and cultural reasons, no longer comfortably fits the increasingly discerning and dynamic contours of our times. Subway. It's a worthwhile exercise to pause and genuinely attempt to pinpoint the last occasion you consciously chose to patronize a Subway outlet. For a substantial segment of the American population, especially among working-class individuals grappling with budgetary constraints and students seeking expedient, low-cost sustenance, Subway historically occupied the niche of being the least objectionable option. It offered a perceived trifecta of speed, convenience, and a marginally less greasy profile compared to the ubiquitous burger joints or pizza parlors. However, the once familiar and almost reflexive stop at a Subway is now becoming a far less common occurrence. The chain is engaged in a notably quiet yet steady retreat from the American commercial topography. This observation is not rooted in mere conjecture or anecdotal evidence. The hard data underscores a grim reality. Over the span of the last 5 years alone, Subway has been compelled to permanently shutter more than 4,000 of its U.S. locations. This marks a precipitous decline from its zenith of over 27,000 operational units in 2015, a figure that had eroded to approximately 20,000 by the conclusion of 2024. Disturbingly for the brand and its stakeholders, this downward numerical trajectory shows no signs of abating, continuing its slide month after month. What confluence of factors has precipitated such a dramatic fall from its former position of market dominance? The reasons are legion, almost too numerous to catalog exhaustively, yet 3 issues stand out as having delivered particularly decisive and damaging blows to the brand's vitality. Firstly, its long-touted healthy menu, which once served as a key point of differentiation in a fast food landscape saturated with fried options, now appears conspicuously outdated and thoroughly misaligned with contemporary consumer expectations regarding nutrition and food quality. Today's American consumer, increasingly informed and health-conscious, places a significant premium on genuinely fresh, high-quality ingredients, transparent and ethical sourcing practices, and a clear, unambiguous understanding of the nutritional content and origins of their food. Subway, however, has largely persisted in its reliance on pre-sliced, often lackluster canned vegetables, heavily processed deli meats that raise concerns about additives and sodium content, and tired, uninspired sandwich formulas that have witnessed minimal innovation for decades. Consequently, the once effective marketing slogan, "Eat Fresh," now frequently strikes discerning consumers as a hollow, almost ironic anachronism when juxtaposed with competitors who actively showcase vibrant, locally sourced produce, artisan-baked breads, and higher quality protein options. Secondly, Subway's brand integrity has been severely battered by a prolonged period of damaging negative press and significant reputational crises. These incidents range from the internationally embarrassing not legally bred scandal that erupted in Ireland, where courts ruled its sandwich rolls contained too much sugar to be legally defined as bread, to the profound and lasting disgrace surrounding its former longtime brand ambassador, Jared Fogle, whose conviction on heinous child exploitation charges cast an indelible shadow over the company. Subway's reputation has consequently endured a relentless barrage of crippling hits, and as seasoned industry observers are acutely aware, once the foundational trust of the American consumer is fundamentally shattered, it proves to be an exceedingly arduous, if not altogether impossible, undertaking to fully reclaim it. Thirdly, the competitive environment within the sandwich sector has become mercilessly fierce and unforgiving. A new wave of nimble, innovative, and customer-focused upstarts, including rapidly expanding chains such as Jersey Mike's Subs, Firehouse Subs, and even the fast casual behemoth Panera Bread, with its expanding sandwich offerings, have successfully achieved what Subway seemingly could not or would not. They have effectively modernized their product offerings, embraced transparency in their ingredient sourcing and preparation methodologies, and cultivated a markedly friendlier, more inviting, and contemporary dining atmosphere. These ascendant competitors often feature open-style kitchens that allow customers to see their food being prepared, utilize demonstrably higher quality ingredients, and create an overall more premium and satisfying customer experience, thereby justifying their often slightly higher price points. Meanwhile, many Subway locations appear stubbornly tethered to outdated service models, characterized by tired and often neglected interior decor, staffed by employees who frequently appear disengaged or overworked, and consistently serving up sandwiches that numerous longtime customers lament are progressively diminishing in both size and substance. Adding another layer of complexity and uncertainty to this precarious situation, even though Subway was acquired by the private equity investment firm Roark Capital in 2023, widespread optimism for a swift, decisive, and successful turnaround remains, by most informed accounts, exceedingly subdued. Critically, not a single one of the original founders or their direct descendants remains actively involved in steering the company's strategic direction. This colossal, heavily franchisee-dependent machine now appears to be alarmingly adrift, drawing unsettling parallels to the ill-fated Titanic, rapidly taking on water and seemingly sinking fast, with no clearly identifiable, confident, or capable leadership at the helm to navigate it through these profoundly treacherous and challenging waters. Thus, the pressing and unavoidable question now looms with significant gravity. Will Subway, the once uncontested global monarch of submarine sandwiches, even manage to maintain its operational viability through the remainder of 2025? Or will the enduring legacy of its once dominant empire be reduced to nothing more than the fading, nostalgic recollections of long, often disappointingly soggy sandwiches, hastily and impersonally assembled in a multitude of small, unassuming shops that are now, one by one, displaying the stark and final message, permanently closed? Hooters. Envision this all-too-common scene. You are driving your car past a somewhat time-worn, perhaps visibly struggling suburban shopping plaza, and your attention is inadvertently drawn to a faded sun-bleached Hooters sign, its once vibrant orange now muted, hanging precariously above windows coated with a layer of accumulated dust. There is no discernible throng of patrons, no palpable buzz of energy or excitement emanating from within, merely the quiet, almost melancholic husk of a brand that seems inextricably marooned in a bygone era. It might indeed be the opportune moment to articulate openly what a significant number of observers and former patrons have been quietly acknowledging for several years. America, in a broad and decisive cultural shift, is perceptibly turning its collective back on the Hooters concept. There was, undeniably, a period when Hooters represented something more than just another casual dining establishment where one could procure a plate of chicken wings and a cold draft beer. It was, in essence, a meticulously packaged and mass-marketed embodiment of a particular, somewhat dated male fantasy. A staff predominantly composed of conventionally attractive young women attired in tight-fitting, revealing uniforms, an abundant and readily available supply of cold beer, and a ubiquitous cacophony of sports broadcasts blaring from an array of strategically placed, often wall-sized, television screens. However, we are currently navigating the socio-cultural landscape of 2025, not the prevailing norms of 1995, and the stark, unavoidable truth is that Hooters, as a brand, a concept, and a customer experience, has demonstrably failed to evolve in any substantial or meaningful manner that resonates with contemporary sensibilities. According to meticulously compiled and analyzed data from Technomic, a respected food service research and consulting firm, Hooters' U.S. restaurant footprint has undergone a significant and sustained contraction, plummeting from a peak of approximately 430 locations in the year 2012 to fewer than 280 operational units by the close of 2024. And the persistent, rhythmic drumbeat of closures continues its steady cadence, showing no signs of imminent reversal. In the immediate past 2-year period alone, no fewer than 40 Hooters locations have permanently ceased their operations, a figure that includes prominent and once thriving branches situated in major metropolitan centers such as Chicago, Houston, and San Diego, urban areas where one might have reasonably expected the brand to retain a degree of enduring appeal or at least a more resilient market presence. Yet, there is an even more disquieting and perhaps more fundamental truth lurking beneath these sobering closure statistics. Customers, particularly those from younger and more culturally influential demographics, are simply not returning to the chain, nor are new ones being adequately attracted. A comprehensive survey conducted in 2023 by the reputable market research firm Statista revealed a particularly telling and concerning statistic. Upwards of 60% of American respondents aged between 18 and 34 reported that they felt a degree of discomfort with or were actively repelled by Hooters' overtly suggestive marketing concept and the overall ambiance it cultivates. A significant portion of this demographic expressed a clear disinclination to patronize an establishment where they perceived that their girlfriends, wives, female friends, or even female family members might feel objectified, disrespected, or simply uncomfortable. Today's younger generation of diners, a demographic that is absolutely crucial for the long-term viability and future success of any restaurant chain, is increasingly seeking authentic and engaging experiences, high-quality and thoughtfully prepared food, and genuinely welcoming and inclusive environments when they choose to dine out. They are not, by and large, primarily motivated by what they perceive as superficial or anachronistic eye candy. Furthermore, even if one were to momentarily disregard the contentious and widely debated visual marketing aspects of the Hooters brand, the culinary offerings themselves are not exactly garnering widespread critical acclaim or inspiring passionate consumer loyalty. According to an in-depth analysis published by Business Insider, the chain's menu currently holds a distinctly lackluster average Yelp rating of a mere 2.9 out of a possible 5 stars, when aggregated across the 3 most populous states in the United States. This represents a dangerously low score within the context of an already brutally competitive, unforgiving, and highly saturated food industry, where online reviews and social media sentiment can often make or break an establishment's reputation and financial success. In the meantime, some rival chains, such as Twin Peaks and the now largely defunct Tilted Kilt, brands that were, it must be noted, initially conceived and built upon a broadly similar, if slightly updated, restaurant operational model, have already undertaken significant and visible efforts to reinvent and reposition themselves in the market. These competitors have, for instance, notably upgraded their menus to include more diverse, higher quality, and often more inventive food options. They have refreshed their interior designs to create more contemporary, appealing, and comfortable dining spaces. And they have strategically pivoted their branding and marketing focus towards establishing themselves as more legitimate and broadly appealing sports bars. This strategic shift often involves emphasizing an extensive craft beer selection, a more diverse food menu that extends beyond basic bar fare, and an overall ambiance designed to attract not only their traditional core demographic of middle-aged male sports fans, but also the increasingly influential and sought-after Gen Z and millennial crowds, including female patrons. Hooters, in stark and telling contrast, continues to tenaciously, almost stubbornly, cling to its original, increasingly anachronistic formula, and this unwavering, almost dogmatic loyalty to a dated and polarizing concept is proving to be a substantial and ever heavier liability, progressively dragging the entire brand further underwater towards potential obsolescence. Perhaps the most poignant and melancholic aspect of this protracted decline is this. Hooters isn't merely hemorrhaging customers and experiencing a sustained erosion of its revenue base. It is, more profoundly, progressively losing its very foothold and relevance within the broader American cultural memory. A new and influential generation of diners did not grow up with Hooters as an iconic or aspirational establishment. They harbor no deep-seated sense of nostalgia for the brand, possess no inherent or compelling reason to care about its ongoing struggles or ultimate fate, and, consequently, feel even less motivation to actively support or fight for its continued survival. A brand that was once, for a specific segment of the population and during a particular cultural moment, undeniably iconic and a widely recognized cultural touchstone, is now slowly but surely, and perhaps irreversibly, morphing into a relic, a curious, somewhat dated artifact of a past that feels increasingly distant, out of sync with contemporary values, and irrelevant to modern consumer preferences. Red Lobster. For many decades and across multiple generations of American families, the name Red Lobster was once the very epitome, the quintessential definition, of accessible and affordable luxury within the casual dining sector. For innumerable working-class households throughout the nation, it consistently represented the designated special occasion destination. It was the establishment where a proud husband would take his wife to commemorate a significant wedding anniversary, the restaurant where gratified parents would treat their accomplished children to a well-deserved celebratory meal following a graduation ceremony or academic achievement. Red Lobster was a brand name that became inextricably synonymous not with ostentatious displays of wealth or the rarefied atmosphere of elite exclusivity, but rather with the tangible and deeply appreciated taste of a well-earned reward. It signified a rare, cherished, and eagerly anticipated treat for those individuals diligently and arduously working 5, or often even 6, demanding days each and every week to provide for their families. But now, with a palpable sense of economic unease gripping many households, even that modest, once reliable, and highly valued reward is perceptibly and distressingly slipping beyond the comfortable financial reach of many of its former patrons. Red Lobster, the venerable and long-standing seafood restaurant chain, is currently found to be teetering precariously on the very brink of potential financial collapse. Its potential downfall, should it come to pass, would signify far more than just the unfortunate end of another prominent restaurant business in a challenging market. It serves as a stark, poignant, and deeply resonant warning that the simple, unpretentious, and once readily accessible joys and affordable indulgences that were previously well within the grasp of the American working class are now systematically and progressively vanishing, one cherished experience by one. According to recent and profoundly alarming financial disclosures publicly released by Thai Union Group, the major Thailand-based global seafood conglomerate that currently holds a controlling majority stake in the Red Lobster enterprise, the embattled restaurant chain experienced a staggering financial hemorrhage, losing upwards of $33 million in the first fiscal quarter of 2024 alone. This catastrophic level of loss has reportedly compelled the parent company to openly and seriously consider the drastic and painful measure of permanently closing hundreds of its Red Lobster locations across the United States. This consideration is part of a desperate, last-ditch strategic attempt to staunch the relentless and unsustainable financial bleeding, and to somehow stabilize what increasingly appears to be a rapidly sinking corporate ship. What intricate and converging array of adverse factors is responsible for driving this profound and escalating operational and financial crisis? The list of contributing culprits is, regrettably, both extensive and daunting in its scope. The procurement cost of essential signature seafood ingredients most notably premium items such as lobster and crab, has absolutely skyrocketed over the course of the past 2 to 3 years. This dramatic price inflation is attributed to a complex interplay of factors, including the detrimental effects of overfishing in key harvesting regions, the impacts of global climate change on marine ecosystems and seafood populations, and persistent, wide-ranging disruptions within the global seafood supply chain. When one adds to this already challenging operational scenario, the relentless and pervasive pressures of rampant general inflation across the broader economy, affecting everything from utilities to paper goods, the pressing necessity of offering rising wages to attract and retain restaurant staff in an intensely competitive labor market, and the burden of soaring commercial rental costs for its many established locations, then suddenly, that once iconic and highly effective 20 Endless Shrimp promotional deal, a marketing initiative originally conceived and successfully deployed to lure price-sensitive customers through the doors, has dramatically transformed from a potent customer magnet and revenue driver into a significant and unsustainable financial liability for the company. Compounding these operational woes, and perhaps representing an even more fundamental and existentially damaging trend for the brand, is the discernible and accelerating erosion of Red Lobster's core and historically loyal customer base. According to the findings of a comprehensive 2023 survey meticulously conducted and analyzed by FSR Magazine, a leading and respected trade publication within the food service industry, Red Lobster has unfortunately lost over 30% of its repeat and regular diners when current patronage levels are compared directly against its pre-pandemic customer traffic figures. A significant portion of these former loyalists, many of whom fall into the working and middle-income brackets, no longer possess the requisite levels of disposable income needed to comfortably justify such dining experiences, as their household budgets are being increasingly and severely squeezed by the relentlessly rising costs of essential goods and services. Other former patrons, particularly those from younger and more culinarily adventurous demographics, simply no longer find Red Lobster's traditional and somewhat static menu offerings sufficiently compelling, innovative, or appealing, especially when viewed within the context of a contemporary dining landscape that increasingly favors and prioritizes attributes such as verifiable freshness, locally sourced ingredients wherever possible, unique and memorable culinary concepts, and more broadly engaging and experiential dining encounters. The direct, tangible, and visually apparent result of these converging negative pressures is a nationwide network of Red Lobster dining rooms that, not so long ago, would have characteristically glowed with the vibrant, convivial buzz of Friday night crowds, family celebrations, and lively group gatherings. These same spaces now, all too often, sit eerily and unnervingly quiet, even during what should traditionally be peak dining hours. The restaurant lights may indeed still be switched on, the tables meticulously set with cutlery and glassware, but the seats, in many instances, remain conspicuously cold, unoccupied, and telling of a deeper malaise. From the densely populated suburban corridors of New Jersey to the sprawling, sun-drenched communities of Arizona, the unwelcome sight of "for lease" signs is progressively and with increasing frequency appearing on Red Lobster properties that were, for many years, proud, stable, and highly valued anchor tenants of local shopping centers, community plazas, and prominent commercial thoroughfares. It is critically important to understand that people are not necessarily or universally avoiding Red Lobster because they have suddenly and inexplicably fallen out of love with the brand's core concept or the familiar taste of its food. In many, if not most, instances, they are reluctantly avoiding it because, quite simply and starkly, they can no longer comfortably or responsibly afford to patronize it with the same frequency, or perhaps at all. Within the broader socio-economic panorama of contemporary America, an America where an increasing number of hardworking individuals and families are finding themselves systematically priced out of fundamental life aspirations such as affordable home ownership, accessible and comprehensive health care, and quality educational opportunities for their children. The loss of the simple ability to enjoy a modest and enjoyable weekend seafood dinner often feels like yet another disheartening and deeply felt blow to their sense of dignity, their quality of life, and their overall well-being. Red Lobster, it must be remembered, was never merely just another restaurant in the crowded casual dining segment. For many, it stood as a potent and evocative symbol of a different, perhaps more optimistic and equitable vision of America. It represented an America where the working class could still realistically aspire to and regularly enjoy a good, satisfying, and celebratory meal out with their loved ones, without the gnawing and accompanying fear of immediate financial ruin or the specter of accumulating unmanageable debt. And if the Red Lobster chain does indeed ultimately collapse entirely in the course of 2025, as a growing chorus of industry analysts and financial prognosticators now soberly and with increasing confidence predict, its unfortunate demise will not simply be recorded in the annals of business history as another regrettable corporate casualty in a particularly challenging and unforgiving market. Rather, it will resonate profoundly as a deeply melancholy, symbolic, and culturally significant note in the growing, discordant symphony of economic instability, diminishing opportunity, and eroding middle-class security that is currently sweeping across the nation, palpably impacting the daily lives, the future prospects, and the deeply held aspirations of millions of ordinary Americans. Applebee's. Allow yourself a moment to genuinely reflect. When was the most recent occasion that you found yourself making a deliberate choice to stop by an Applebee's restaurant? We're not referring to a significant milestone birthday celebration, a pre-planned anniversary dinner, or any other specific, noteworthy, special event. Instead, think about just a regular, unceremonious Friday night, or perhaps a spontaneous weeknight outing. You're likely feeling somewhat fatigued after a long and demanding work week, and your primary desire is for something predictably familiar, something decidedly comforting, something reliably unpretentious and easy. Applebee's, for a substantial period, was meticulously conceived and successfully positioned to be precisely that kind of place. An establishment where you could comfortably and confidently order a familiar favorite, like a Bourbon Street steak, leisurely sip on a few generously poured Long Island iced teas from their extensive drink menu, and share relaxed, easygoing laughter with a comfortable circle of friends, cherished family members, or congenial coworkers. Applebee's never harbored aspirations of being a haute cuisine, fine dining destination, nor was it ever marketed or perceived as such by the dining public. However, for a significant and extended period in American dining history, it successfully carved out and robustly occupied the popular niche of being America's friendly, accessible, and pervasively present neighborhood restaurant and bar, a comforting and consistent fixture in a world that often seemed to be characterized by rapid, disorienting, and unceasing change. And now, with a palpable sense of unease for its loyal patrons and franchisees, that once familiar and ubiquitously present neighbor is observed to be quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the process of packing up its commercial belongings and systematically moving away from local communities scattered all across the country. During the calendar year 2023 alone, Applebee's permanently closed the doors on over 46 of its operational locations spread throughout the United States. Furthermore, according to recent public statements and forward-looking guidance provided by the Chief Executive Officer of Dine Brands, the overarching parent company that owns and operates the Applebee's chain, as well as IHOP, an additional 25 to 35 restaurant closures are currently anticipated and being planned for throughout the course of 2025. This ongoing contraction is being driven by the harsh reality of persistently shrinking, and in some cases vanishing, profit margins, which are rendering day-to-day operational survival an increasingly arduous and often untenable proposition for a growing number of underperforming or unfavorably located Applebee's outlets. However, the complex and deeply rooted challenges currently confronting the Applebee's brand extend considerably far beyond merely the immediate concerns of declining same-store sales figures or the acute pressure of thinning profit margins. The chain, in many respects, now stands as a quintessential, almost textbook, casualty of the profound, truly seismic shift that is currently underway in the fundamental ways that Americans approach, engage with, and make decisions about eating out in the contemporary era. As consumer prices for a wide array of everyday goods and essential services continue their relentless and often steep upward trajectory, and as household budgets are consequently and inevitably tightened in response, a significant and growing number of American consumers are finding themselves compelled to make increasingly stark and often difficult choices regarding their discretionary spending, particularly on dining out. These choices frequently lead them to gravitate towards one of two distinct and opposing poles of the dining spectrum: Either they make a conscious decision to cook significantly more meals at home, leveraging the potential cost, savings, and control over ingredients, or when they do make the deliberate choice to dine out, they are increasingly opting to splurge on relatively higher-end, more premium dining experiences that they perceive as feeling genuinely special, memorable, and truly worth the expense in terms of superior food quality, unique ambiance, exceptional service, and overall perceived value. Mid-tier, full-service casual dining chains like Applebee's, which historically thrived by occupying the comfortable, broad appeal middle ground of the market, are now finding themselves increasingly and precariously caught in a challenging and unforgiving no man's land, struggling to effectively compete with or compellingly appeal to consumers at either extreme of this bifurcating market. According to meticulously compiled and analyzed industry data sourced from the reputable market research firm Technomic, customer return rates and visit frequency at Applebee's restaurants have experienced a notable and concerning decline of nearly 20% since the widespread disruptions and initial onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Moreover, a significant majority of its remaining and most loyal patrons are now reported to be aged 45 and over. This demographic, while historically important to the brand, is progressively aging out of frequent dining habits and typically exhibits lower overall spending patterns per visit when they do choose to eat out. Meanwhile, the crucial younger generations, particularly the influential millennial and Gen Z cohorts, who collectively represent the future lifeblood and growth engine of the restaurant industry, are, by and large, reported to just not perceive or connect with the appeal of traditional casual dining chains like Applebee's. Their deeply ingrained dining habits are predominantly characterized by a strong and consistent preference for food options that are fast, highly convenient, visually appealing, often termed Instagrammable, suitable for sharing on social media platforms, and, increasingly, more health-conscious or aligned with specific dietary preferences. To these younger, digitally native, and trend-aware consumers, Applebee's often feels distinctly outdated and somewhat uninspiring, both in terms of its menu offerings, which can seem heavy, overly processed, and lacking in culinary innovation, and its overall atmosphere and interior decor, which may lack the contemporary flair, unique character, or experiential quality that they actively seek and value in their dining choices. And it is precisely at this critical juncture of demographic shifts, evolving consumer preferences, and intense market pressures that the great systemic unraveling of the traditional American casual dining model begins to visibly accelerate. This particular model, which for several decades stood as the celebrated pride and a defining feature of middle-class American suburban life, is now palpably crumbling under the combined weight of these transformative forces. Applebee's restaurants, at their peak, used to be virtually ubiquitous, strategically and conveniently located in countless small towns, often situated near vital community institutions such as schools and hospitals, and seamlessly woven into the very fabric of residential neighborhoods across the nation. They frequently felt like a genuine and welcoming extension of the local community, a familiar, reliable, and accessible gathering place for people from all walks of life. But today, in an ever-increasing number of local communities and commercial districts, that instantly recognizable and once comforting red neon Applebee's sign no longer casts its familiar and inviting glow into the evening night. When an Applebee's restaurant permanently closes its doors within a community, it's not merely another unfortunate instance of a restaurant business ceasing its operations. Its closure often serves as a potent and poignant symbol of a widening social and economic divide within that community. It acts as a stark and tangible reminder that many traditional working-class and middle-class gathering spaces, which once played a vital role in fostering social cohesion and community connection, are finding it increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to survive and remain viable in a challenging economic era characterized by relentlessly rising operational costs, intense competition from newer and more agile concepts, and the profound and rapidly shifting tastes and preferences of the modern American diner. With progressively fewer affordable, welcoming, and accessible public places available for people to gather, to share a meal, to simply connect and socialize with one another, there is a growing concern that individuals may increasingly retreat inward, potentially fostering a greater sense of social isolation and disconnection, even when they are living within the supposed heart and hub of their own local communities. If this discernible and concerning downward spiral of closures and declining relevance for the Applebee's brand continues its current trajectory unabated, the chain may, unfortunately, and very soon, become just another prominent and once beloved name added to the ever-growing and melancholic list of iconic American brands that were, in their heyday, considered integral symbols of American life and popular culture, and are now, regrettably, relegated to the realm of fading, increasingly distant, and primarily nostalgic memories. Salt Bae, Nusser et Steakhouse. This particular, highly publicized and often controversial dining establishment was never conceived, nor was it ever positioned, as the sort of casual, everyday restaurant that one might impulsively decide to swing by after a particularly taxing or lengthy day at the office. And the unvarnished, statistically supported truth is that an overwhelming, vast majority, likely upwards of 99%, of the American populace will, in all probability, never actually set foot inside one of the opulent, theatrically driven Nusser et Steakhouse locations, the chain famously and inextricably linked with the internet persona and viral sensation known as Salt Bae, whose real name is Nusret Gökçe. The primary reasons for this widespread inaccessibility are starkly and unapologetically financial. At his sumptuously appointed and strategically located venues, a single, albeit much hyped and signature, salt-sprinkled slice of premium Wagyu beef can, and often does, command an eye-watering price tag that approaches, or in some instances even exceeds, $1,000. A seemingly straightforward menu item, such as a hamburger, is priced at a level that would be considered exorbitant by almost any standard, typically hovering around the $120 mark. And if a diner's culinary desires and penchant for conspicuous consumption should happen to extend to that most ostentatiously presented and widely publicized of Nusser et's offerings, the 24-carat edible gold-covered steak, an item that became an instant viral sensation and a symbol of extreme indulgence, then one must be fully prepared to outlay what can only be described as a modest sum, often in the region of $1,500 or potentially more, and this is invariably before any considerations of sales tax or the customary and often substantial gratuity are factored into the final bill. Yet it must be acknowledged that for a brief, intensely glittering, and highly publicized moment, primarily in the late 2000s and 10s, Nusser et, the rapidly burgeoning international restaurant empire masterminded and fronted by Salt Bae, positively exploded onto the global culinary and social media stage with an undeniable and captivating theatrical flourish. Digital platforms, particularly Instagram and TikTok, were instantly and pervasively flooded with a veritable deluge of slickly produced videos. These videos almost invariably showcased the man himself, Nusret Gökçe, consistently clad in his signature uniform of tight white t-shirts and dark, inscrutable sunglasses, as he theatrically and almost balletically performed his trademark maneuver of sprinkling coarse grains of salt from a dramatic and exaggerated height onto glistening, oversized cuts of prime meat. This unique and highly performative culinary spectacle attracted a veritable parade of high-profile celebrities, internationally renowned athletes, influential social media personalities, and members of the conspicuously ultra-wealthy elite. These individuals seemingly queued up, apparently eager to be, by most objective and rational financial standards, significantly and demonstrably overcharged for their meals. Their motivation appeared to be driven, at least in large part, by the desire to participate in, and to be seen participating in, a flashy, extravagant, highly publicized, and eminently shareable, on social media dining performance, an experience that was perhaps valued more for its novelty and status-signaling potential than for its intrinsic culinary merit. However, as is so often the case with phenomena that are primarily fueled by fleeting internet fame, novelty, and a sense of manufactured hype, the iridescent and seemingly unburstable bubble surrounding the Nusser et brand has, by most accounts and available evidence, demonstrably and significantly burst, particularly within the challenging and highly competitive American market. Since approximately 2023, Various Nusser et Steakhouse locations situated in key U.S. metropolitan centers such as New York City, Miami, and Las Vegas have begun to exhibit visible and undeniable signs of struggle and declining popularity. Online review platforms, including influential sites like Yelp and Google Reviews, have witnessed a precipitous and damaging plummet in average customer ratings for these establishments. A torrent of disillusioned and dissatisfied diners have taken to these platforms to vociferously and publicly complain about what they consistently describe as sky-high, unjustifiable prices, being starkly and jarringly juxtaposed with what many characterize as rock-bottom, unprofessional service, and a generally underwhelming or disappointing overall culinary experience once the initial novelty of the tableside theatrics and salt-sprinkling performance has concluded. According to in-depth investigative reporting conducted and published by the prestigious Financial Times, several of Nusser's American restaurant locations were reportedly compelled to implement significant and morale-damaging staff layoffs in an attempt to curtail operational costs. They were also reportedly forced to drastically shrink their once expansive and ostentatious menus, and, in several documented and particularly concerning cases, experienced catastrophic drops in their reported revenue, with some outlets seeing declines of as much as a staggering 40% within the remarkably short span of just a single calendar year. The international media, always quick to identify and label a trending phenomenon, swiftly and aptly coined a fitting term for this rapid and public decline in fortune and favor. They dubbed it the Salt Bay Burnout. A global public that, for a time, had marveled at, and perhaps even vicariously enjoyed or been amused by, the sheer spectacle, audacity, and unadulterated showmanship of the Salt Bay performance, has evidently and decisively grown weary. They have grown weary of the unrelenting and often repetitive flamboyance, weary of the ostentatious and increasingly anachronistic displays of excess, and, perhaps most critically and damningly, they have become increasingly and acutely aware of the glaring and often jarring disconnect that exists between the performative, superficial spectacle and the substantive, underlying reality of the actual dining experience and food quality itself. And herein lies the painful, unavoidable, and socially resonant truth. At a historical moment, when countless hard-working, ordinary Americans are reportedly being forced to make difficult choices, such as skipping meals like breakfast, simply to conserve their dwindling financial resources, and when the overall cost of essential food items has surged dramatically, in some cases approaching levels that are 150% higher than their pre-pandemic figures, a high-end dining concept that is built exclusively, unapologetically, and ostentatiously for the gratification and entertainment of the ultra-rich begins to feel not just merely out of place or disconnected from mainstream reality, but profoundly and increasingly offensive to the prevailing sensibilities and economic struggles of the general populace. Salt Bay, it has become clear, wasn't just in the business of selling exceptionally expensive food. He was, more accurately, and perhaps more astutely, in the business of selling an elaborately constructed and carefully curated fantasy, a fantasy of extreme luxury, unbridled exclusivity, and effortless affluence that an overwhelming 99% of the American population could never realistically afford to partake in, nor perhaps even genuinely aspire to. But once that glittering, seductive, and highly publicized dream was widely and critically revealed to be fundamentally hollow at its core, demonstrably tone, deaf in its execution and timing, and, to an ever-growing segment of the public, borderline ridiculous and even offensive in its over-the-top pretensions and perceived arrogance, people abandoned it with remarkable alacrity and without so much as a sentimental second thought, quickly moving on to the next fleeting internet trend or social media sensation. While the Nusser brand, backed by its international financing and existing global footprint, may yet manage to survive and perhaps even continue to thrive in specific global wealth havens such as Dubai, London, Monte Carlo, or Istanbul, where a distinctly different clientele, economic reality, and cultural acceptance of such overt displays of wealth prevail, its future prospects within the considerably more challenging and culturally nuanced U.S. market appear to be rapidly and irreversibly fading. Nusser in America is, by most objective measures, deflating fast. much like a once impressive, gaudy, and overinflated balloon that has been stretched far too thin and is now operating within a cracked, unforgiving, and increasingly skeptical economic and social climate. The extravagant salt-dusted show, it would strongly appear, is definitively and conclusively over, at least on American soil. The final, dramatic, and highly Instagrammed salt sprinkle, symbolizing the end of this particular chapter in performative and ultra-luxury dining, may very well have already taken place, marking the quiet and somewhat ignominious conclusion to a short-lived, if undeniably memorable and widely discussed culinary phenomenon, the Cheesecake Factory. If you have ever found yourself navigating the often labyrinthine and invariably bustling corridors of a major American shopping mall, particularly over the past few decades, the statistical probability is overwhelmingly high that your eyes have either alighted upon the distinctively grand, often ornately decorated, and usually quite imposing facade of the Cheesecake Factory, or perhaps you have even partaken in a meal within its uniquely themed, typically cavernous, and eclectically designed interior dining spaces. For many years, and for a very broad spectrum of American diners, this chain has stood as an enduring and widely recognized symbol of indulgent, celebratory, and generously proportioned dining. It is characterized most notably by its famously, almost legendarily enormous, multi-page menu, often described as being akin to a culinary encyclopedia, sometimes running to 6 or more densely packed pages, as well as by its consistently, almost notoriously, generous and frequently shareable portion sizes for nearly all its dishes. And, of course, no mention of the Cheesecake Factory would be complete without acknowledging those iconic, decadent, and incredibly varied slices of its namesake cheesecake, which, for many patrons, feel like the ultimate, well-deserved sweet reward at the satisfactory conclusion of a substantial and often quite rich meal. But today, in the current economic climate of 2025, if you were to pose a direct question to the Cheesecake Factory's once steadfastly loyal and enthusiastic customer base, querying whether they are still as willing or, crucially, as able to splurge on a meal at one of its establishments with the same frequency or lack of financial concern as they might have in years past, the answers you receive might genuinely surprise you with their candidness and underlying tone of economic caution. Why this potential shift in sentiment and behavior? Because the inescapable reality confronting many American families is this: the overall cost of living, including the price of dining out, continues its relentless upward climb, while the disposable incomes for a significant number of these same families are either stagnating or, in many cases, struggling to merely keep pace with these escalating expenses. In an economic era now persistently characterized by stubborn, lingering inflation and a heightened sense of financial prudence among consumers, the experience of dining at the Cheesecake Factory is, for many, no longer perceived as the casual, easily justifiable, or relatively affordable luxury that it perhaps once was. Presently, a typical non-extravagant dinner for two at a Cheesecake Factory location can very easily and routinely amount to $50 or $60, and this is often before factoring in the cost of beverages, appetizers, or the customary tip for service. This price point represents a notably tall order and a significant discretionary expenditure for many families who are already feeling stretched thin by the continuously rising costs of essential living expenses such as housing, transportation, healthcare, and groceries. According to data gleaned from a comprehensive National Restaurant Association survey conducted and analyzed over the period spanning from 2018 to 2023, the Cheesecake Factory experienced a concerning loss of over 20% of its customer traffic when compared directly against the performance of faster, more streamlined, and generally more affordable fast casual restaurant chains. While highly successful and rapidly expanding fast casual establishments like Chipotle Mexican Grill or Panera Bread are effectively capturing a significant share of the market by offering quick, customizable, and relatively value-oriented meals that strongly appeal to the preferences and lifestyles of modern, time-pressed consumers. The Cheesecake Factory finds itself facing increasingly tough and direct competition in a dining marketplace that appears to be almost obsessively focused on attributes such as speed, convenience, and perceived value for money. However, the multifaceted issues confronting the Cheesecake Factory extend beyond just the critical consideration of price sensitivity and value perception. Its famously massive, approximately 250-item menu, which was once widely regarded as a significant strength and a key differentiator that offered something for virtually everyone, is now, in the eyes of many contemporary diners, perceived as being overwhelming, potentially confusing, and even somewhat fatiguing to navigate. Customers often report feeling daunted by the sheer volume of choices, leading to decision paralysis or a sense of being simply uninspired by the vast array of options, many of which can feel somewhat generic or lacking in true culinary innovation. It often presents as an exercise in sheer quantity without a corresponding emphasis on compelling novelty or exceptional quality, a veritable glut of choices that, for many, no longer feels particularly special, curated, or exciting. And then there is the matter of the physical restaurant space and its ambiance. Once widely viewed as an upscale, yet still broadly accessible and family-friendly dining spot, the Cheesecake Factory's signature, often theatrical and somewhat dimly lit, interior design and overall atmosphere are no longer as unique or compelling as they might have once been in a less crowded and more homogeneous dining landscape. Today, a growing proliferation of smaller, often independently owned, local restaurants are successfully offering stylish, contemporary, and highly Instagram-worthy dining settings, frequently coupled with more creative, focused, and seasonally driven menus, and often at more competitive, or at least more transparently justifiable price points. For modern diners, and particularly for younger, trend-conscious demographics, these independent establishments often feel fresher, cooler, more authentic, and ultimately more worth their money and their valuable time. After all, the prevailing consumer logic increasingly questions, why should one pay a noticeable premium for a dining experience that often feels broadly similar to thousands of other meals consumed at other large chain restaurants, when one could instead opt for something quick, demonstrably tasty, locally sourced, and potentially more affordable or uniquely memorable elsewhere? This challenging combination of relatively high prices, an oversized and arguably outdated menu that struggles to convey a clear culinary identity, and an ambiance that may no longer feel distinct or particularly special, has collectively evolved into a significant operational and brand liability for the Cheesecake Factory. This is especially true as it navigates an American economy that is continuing to evolve at a rapid pace, with consumer preferences shifting decisively towards value, convenience, and authenticity. As diners across all demographics grow progressively more cost-conscious, more value-driven in their purchasing decisions, and more discerning in their culinary tastes, established brands like the Cheesecake Factory, which were largely built on a foundation of perceived extravagance, abundant portions, and a something-for-everyone philosophy, now run the considerable risk of being left behind by these evolving market dynamics. To be entirely fair in the assessment, the Cheesecake Factory undeniably still holds a cherished and often beloved place within the broader tapestry of American dining culture, particularly for celebratory occasions and group gatherings. However, the truly pivotal and pressing question for its future viability is this: can the chain successfully hold on to that historically strong market position and retain its customer loyalty as Americans increasingly and demonstrably seek out more accessible, more streamlined, more health-conscious, and ultimately more affordable dining experiences that better align with their current lifestyles and financial realities? The definitive answer to this critical question will inevitably unfold in the coming months and years as the world continues its relentless process of change and as the potent, but ultimately finite, currency of nostalgia proves to be no longer sufficient on its own to guarantee sustained success or relevance in a fiercely competitive and rapidly transforming marketplace. Buffalo Wild Wings. Buffalo Wild Wings, a name colloquially and widely shortened by its devotees to B-dubs, once proudly and almost unassailably stood as the quintessential go-to destination for lively game nights, an extensive selection of beers, and, of course, its signature array of spicy, sauce-slathered chicken wings, all enjoyed in a boisterous and convivial atmosphere with a group of friends. This was the place where sports fandom, casual camaraderie, and indulgent comfort food happily converged. But now, with a palpable shift in consumer preferences and market dynamics, What used to be an almost obligatory must-visit hangout for sports enthusiasts and casual diners alike is observed to be slowly, yet perceptibly, being left behind by evolving tastes and a more competitive landscape. And the pivotal question crystallizes with increasing clarity. Why is this once profoundly beloved and culturally resonant casual dining chain now found to be teetering so precariously on the figurative edge of potential collapse as we navigate through 2025? To unearth the comprehensive answer, it is imperative that we delve into the significant and ongoing shifts in prevailing consumer habits and lifestyle choices. For many successful years, Buffalo Wild Wings thrived commercially by adhering to a relatively simple yet highly effective three-pronged formula: an abundant offering of beer, a primary focus on chicken wings in myriad flavors, and the ubiquitous broadcasting of live sports on countless television screens. However, the collective American mindset, particularly concerning food and leisure, has undergone a notable and consequential transformation, especially among the influential and market-shaping demographics of Gen Z and millennials. Increasingly, today's consumers, across a widening age spectrum, are consciously and actively opting for healthier, cleaner, more transparently sourced, and generally more mindful eating choices. The era of unbridled indulgence in high-calorie, often greasy meals with perceived minimal nutritional value is steadily falling out of favor, replaced by a heightened awareness of and desire for wellness and balance. According to a revealing report compiled and published by Statista, a reputable market and consumer data provider, since the year 2018, Buffalo Wild Wings has experienced a concerning drop in its overall revenue, declining by roughly 15%. This figure stands as a significant red flag and a clear indicator of underlying challenges for a brand that was fundamentally built upon and historically celebrated for its commitment to unapologetic indulgence and a more is more philosophy. So, what specific factors are compelling customers to turn away from a brand that once held such a strong appeal? One primary and undeniable reason is the concurrent and significant rise of demonstrably better, or at least more currently aligned, alternatives in the marketplace. The fast casual dining segment, in particular, has witnessed an explosion in popularity, with chains such as Chipotle Mexican Grill and Panera Bread capturing substantial market share by consistently offering fresh, often customizable, and perceived as healthier meals at accessible and competitive price points. Their menus are typically designed to be quick to navigate and order from. The food is generally flavorful and made with visibly fresh ingredients, and their overall value proposition is more closely and effectively aligned with the demanding lifestyles of modern diners who increasingly prioritize attributes such as speed of service, tangible nutritional benefits, and overall simplicity and convenience in their dining choices. And what about the signature atmosphere that once defined the Buffalo Wild Wings experience? The brand meticulously built its distinct identity around the energetic, often chaotic ambiance of loud, omnipresent televisions, broadcasting multiple sporting events simultaneously, dining rooms packed to capacity, and the palpable, high-decibel energy of live sports fandom. But this particular environment, it turns out, no longer holds universal appeal, if it ever truly did. Today, a significant and growing segment of the American population, when seeking a dining or social experience outside the home, express a preference for calmer, more relaxing, and conversation-friendly spaces where they can comfortably unwind after a long day of work or engage in meaningful social interaction. They are not necessarily seeking out chaotic bar environments where shouting over the pervasive background noise is an accepted and often necessary part of the overall experience. For an increasing number of potential patrons, a night out at a typical B-Dubs location now feels more emotionally and sensorially draining than genuinely fun or restorative. Another major contributing factor to the chain's current predicament is the unavoidable issue of rising operational and menu costs. Dining at Buffalo Wild Wings is not, by most measures, a particularly cheap endeavor, and as the U.S. economy continues to grapple with persistent inflationary pressures and the consequent soaring costs of living, many price-sensitive customers are understandably opting for more affordable alternatives when making their dining decisions. In the year 2022, for instance, a typical non-elaborate dinner for two individuals at a B-Dubs establishment could easily amount to $30 or $40, or even more with the addition of alcoholic beverages. In stark contrast, comparable meals featuring similar food items, such as chicken wings or tenders, at direct competitors like Wingstop or Zaxby's might, at the same time, only cost in the region of $20 to $25. This noticeable and often significant price gap is undoubtedly steering a considerable volume of customers towards these more budget-friendly competitors. So, how can Buffalo Wild Wings realistically hope to survive this perfect storm of shifting consumer preferences, intense competition, and unfavorable economic conditions? The consensus among industry analysts is that the chain urgently requires a major, fundamental overhaul of its entire business model. This transformation would need to commence with a comprehensively revamped and modernized menu that strategically includes a greater array of genuinely healthier options, more diverse culinary choices beyond its traditional wing-centric fare, and more accessible and competitive price points that better reflect current economic realities. However, implementing such profound and systemic changes invariably takes a significant amount of time, capital investment, and strategic realignment. Resources and runway that Buffalo Wild Wings, often referred to as B-dubs by its patrons, may find itself in increasingly short supply of, particularly within a fiercely competitive market where consumer tastes and dining trends are evolving at a faster and more unpredictable pace than ever before. The stark reality is that Buffalo Wild Wings isn't merely engaged in a head-to-head battle against other established restaurant chains for market share. More fundamentally, it is grappling with a new and pervasive cultural mindset, a paradigm shift where contemporary diners are actively seeking out enjoyable and affordable meals that do not necessitate a compromise on their health aspirations, their desire for a pleasant and comfortable atmosphere, or their expectation of good overall value. Once widely considered the default, almost undisputed destination for enjoying chicken wings and watching the big game, Buffalo Wild Wings now finds itself relegated to being just one among many available options in a crowded and rapidly fragmenting marketplace. And if the brand fails to evolve, adapt, and innovate with both speed and conviction, it faces the very real and imminent risk of soon becoming just another forgotten name, a casualty in the relentless and unforgiving competitive race that defines America's dynamic and ever-changing restaurant industry. Taco Bell. Taco Bell, with its long-standing and widely recognized reputation for offering affordable, exceptionally fast, and highly convenient Mexican-inspired fare, has for many decades served as a beloved and almost iconic staple for satisfying the late-night cravings of millions of Americans, as well as providing a budget-friendly meal option at any time of day. It has carved out a distinct and remarkably resilient niche in the fast food landscape. However, the critical question that now confronts this fast food giant is whether Taco Bell can effectively maintain its historically strong market position and continue to thrive in an industry where consumers are becoming progressively more demanding and discerning, not just concerning the crucial factor of price, but also, and with increasing emphasis, regarding the healthfulness, quality, and sourcing of their food choices. Mention the name Taco Bell, and most individuals will instantly conjure up mental images of vibrantly colorful, often creatively named, and highly craveable quick-service meals, all typically available at virtually unbeatable and highly accessible price points. Yet, simmering just beneath this familiar and largely positive surface image, the brand is currently facing a series of serious and complex challenges as American culinary tastes and dietary preferences continue their rapid and unceasing evolution. One of the most significant and formidable forces currently working against Taco Bell's long-term growth trajectory is the dramatic and ongoing shift in broader American eating habits. While a substantial and loyal customer base undoubtedly still enjoys and frequently consumes the chain's distinctively flavorful and often indulgent fast food offerings, a steadily growing and increasingly influential segment of consumers is now actively prioritizing meals that are not only inexpensive and convenient, but also demonstrably healthy, made with fresh ingredients, and aligned with a more wellness-oriented lifestyle. Both the Gen Z and millennial demographics are prominently leading this pervasive movement towards more mindful eating, becoming progressively more conscious of and attentive to factors such as diet, overall nutrition, ingredient transparency, and general physical and mental well-being. And while Taco Bell historically thrived and built its formidable empire by offering a menu rich in indulgent, often cheese-laden, and flavor-packed dishes that were high in calories and fat. Today's ascendant fast casual giants, such as Chipotle Mexican Grill and Panera Bread, are successfully winning over a significant share of these health-aware customers by deliberately and strategically moving in precisely the opposite direction. Their brand propositions are heavily centered on offering food that is fresh, wholesome, often customizable to meet specific dietary needs like gluten-free or vegan, and generally perceived as being more balanced and nutritious. So, the pivotal and increasingly urgent question for Taco Bell's leadership becomes, can the brand effectively and convincingly compete in a rapidly evolving food landscape where lower-calorie, nutrient-dense, and clean-label meals are increasingly becoming the new standard and expectation, especially among younger consumers? The available market data and recent performance indicators suggest that this is becoming a progressively more difficult proposition for the chain. Despite managing to hold on to its established and significant spot within the highly competitive fast food hierarchy, Taco Bell's overall growth rate has noticeably slowed in recent years. According to industry analysis from Technomic, Taco Bell's reported revenue in the fiscal year 2023 increased by a relatively modest 3% when compared to the previous year. While any growth is generally positive, this figure appears somewhat lackluster when stacked against the performance of rapidly ascending competitors such as Chipotle or Chick-fil-A, both of which have consistently posted growth figures that far outpace Taco Bell's recent performance, indicating a potential loss of momentum for the Yum brand's-owned chain. In an attempt to respond to these shifting consumer demands and competitive pressures, Taco Bell has indeed made some efforts to adapt its menu, experimenting with offerings such as vegetarian and vegan options, like its black bean-based items, and even some nominally gluten-free choices. However, thus far, these changes have often been perceived by consumers and industry observers as feeling more tentative and incremental rather than truly transformative or deeply integrated into the core brand identity. Consequently, these newer, healthier options haven't yet fully or broadly resonated with the new wave of highly health-conscious and discerning consumers who may still associate the brand primarily with its more traditional, indulgent fare. Another significant and looming challenge for Taco Bell is intrinsically linked to its long-standing low-price business model. While offering exceptionally cheap eats has always been one of its most potent strengths and a key driver of its mass appeal, the harsh economic reality is that relentlessly rising food production costs, escalating labor expenses, and ongoing inflationary pressures across the supply chain make it considerably harder than ever before for the brand to consistently maintain those rock-bottom prices without, at some point, potentially sacrificing either product quality, portion sizes, or both. This complex situation inevitably forces the brand's leadership to fundamentally rethink its entire development strategy and value proposition. How can Taco Bell continue to be perceived as an affordable option while simultaneously staying relevant, appealing to modern tastes, and maintaining acceptable profit margins in a high-cost environment? So, does Taco Bell ultimately possess the necessary innovative capacity, strategic foresight, and operational agility to successfully weather this confluence of challenges and navigate the storm ahead? It certainly won't be an easy or straightforward path to continued dominance. To not just survive, but to truly thrive in the coming years, Taco Bell will likely need to undertake a more comprehensive and convincing rebuild of its menu, focusing on delivering meals that are perceived as being both genuinely delicious and demonstrably nutritious. This must be achieved while simultaneously preserving the critical attributes of speed, convenience, and affordability that originally made the brand so iconic and successful in the first place, a truly formidable balancing act. Should it fail to effectively execute this complex strategic pivot, Taco Bell could easily and rapidly find itself falling off the radar for a significant segment of modern consumers, particularly those who are actively seeking out meal options that are quick, healthy, value-driven, and aligned with their evolving lifestyle preferences. In the end, we may indeed witness the emergence of a very different iteration of Taco Bell in the coming years, one that strategically and visibly moves away from its historical emphasis on greasy, cheesy indulgence and instead more authentically embraces a smarter, fresher, and perhaps more transparent brand identity. But the even bigger and more pressing question remains, will the company be able to evolve and adapt its massive, deeply entrenched system fast enough and convincingly enough before it's potentially too late to reverse the trends of slowing growth and shifting consumer sentiment? When the name IHOP, International House of Pancakes, is mentioned, it's almost impossible for most Americans not to immediately conjure up vivid mental images of towering stacks of fluffy, golden brown pancakes, generously drenched in various flavored syrups, alongside those famously expansive and often indulgent breakfast platters. Culinary experiences that entire generations of Americans have grown up with and lovingly associated with family outings, weekend treats, and comforting familiar meals. For decades, IHOP has been a cornerstone of the American breakfast scene, but in the current era, characterized by rapidly shifting lifestyles, the meteoric rise of agile and contemporary, fast casual dining chains, and an ever-increasing consumer demand for healthier, more wholesome food choices, a critical question becomes increasingly clear and pressing. Can IHOP, with its deeply entrenched traditions and signature offerings, effectively hold on to its historically prominent and cherished place within the highly competitive and dynamically evolving American dining landscape? IHOP was, for a very considerable period, widely regarded as the undisputed gold standard of the quintessential all-American breakfast experience, a reliable haven for those seeking familiar comforts and generous portions. However, times are demonstrably changing, and so too are the fundamental breakfast habits and preferences of the American populace. Significant growth within the broader breakfast and fast food industry is no longer being primarily driven by sugar-laden treats, butter-soaked pancakes, or heavy high-calorie platters. Instead, today's diners, across all age groups, but particularly among younger demographics, are paying considerably more attention to factors such as overall calorie counts, added sugar intake, ingredient quality, and specific dietary preferences, including a notable surge in demand for appealing vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options. According to a recent and revealing report published by the National Restaurant Association, the consumption of classic, traditional breakfast items such as pancakes and waffles has experienced a significant drop, declining by as much as 44% over the past 5 years alone. This stark statistic spells considerable trouble for IHOP, a brand whose very identity and historical success were once inextricably and almost singularly synonymous with pancake perfection and indulgent breakfast fare. And although the parent company, Dine Brands, has indeed attempted to pivot and adapt by introducing items such as salads, fruit smoothies, and other ostensibly lighter options to its extensive menu, it appears, based on current market trends and consumer feedback, that these changes have not yet been substantial, convincing, or appealing enough to fully recapture the hearts, stomachs, and dining dollars of modern, health-aware consumers. IHOP also faces a series of deeply ingrained structural challenges, many of which are rooted in its traditional, full-service, sit-down dining business model. The vast majority of its numerous locations across the country remain standalone, relatively large footprint restaurants, which inherently come with higher operational overheads compared to many of their leaner, more contemporary competitors. Unlike newer and more agile fast casual concepts such as Chick-fil-A, which has a strong breakfast business, or Shake Shack, which represents a different segment but exemplifies modern efficiency, which typically operate with significantly lower overhead costs, smaller physical footprints, and greater operational flexibility, IHOP finds itself burdened by the economics of its older model. With the persistent and ongoing pressures of rising inflation impacting ingredient and utility costs, coupled with escalating labor costs in a competitive employment market, the financial viability of maintaining these older, larger, and inherently more expensive-to-run restaurant locations has become increasingly challenging and, in some cases, demonstrably unsustainable. Furthermore, and perhaps even more critically from a competitive standpoint, IHOP is no longer the sole or even necessarily the leading prominent name in the dedicated breakfast dining segment. A host of emerging and rapidly expanding breakfast-focused chains, such as First Watch and Eggs Up Grill, are successfully capturing significant market share by offering not just great-tasting morning meals, but also menus that are perceived as being demonstrably healthier, more mindful of contemporary dietary trends, and often featuring fresher, higher-quality ingredients. These newer competitors are effectively appealing not just to consumers' taste buds, but also to their growing concern for overall well-being, clean eating principles, and a desire for more transparent and thoughtfully sourced food options. They often cultivate a brighter, more modern ambience and provide a more contemporary dining experience that resonates strongly with today's diners. The reality of IHOP's current market position is becoming increasingly clear. While the brand undoubtedly still retains a loyal and often nostalgic customer base, particularly among older demographics and families with young children, it is undeniably operating under immense and multifaceted pressure. According to recent industry data compiled by IBISWorld, IHOP's overall revenue experienced a concerning fall of approximately 3.6% in the fiscal year 2023. This decline is a particularly worrying sign, especially when viewed within the context of a broader restaurant industry where many agile competitors, particularly in the fast casual and breakfast segments, are still managing to post healthy and often robust growth figures. This challenging situation inevitably leads many industry observers, investors, and even loyal customers to wonder, with a degree of apprehension, about the long-term future of the IHOP brand. Will it manage to successfully evolve, innovate, and modernize its offerings and operations sufficiently to remain relevant and competitive in the years to come? Or is it, regrettably, already set on a similar path to decline that has already claimed other once iconic, but ultimately inflexible, restaurant chains? Unless IHOP can decisively and effectively modernize its core menu, genuinely and authentically embrace the pervasive wellness and health consciousness movement that is currently sweeping through the food industry, and perhaps even reevaluate its traditional real estate and operational model, its long-term survival in an increasingly demanding and unforgiving marketplace is, by most objective assessments, anything but certain. TGI Fridays. Who among a certain generation of American diners doesn't harbor at least a few fond memories of those lively weekend nights spent gathering with friends at a local TGI Fridays? The scene is often recalled with a sense of nostalgia. Animated conversations punctuated by the clinking of glasses, the arrival of shareable platters of appetizers, oversized burgers dripping with toppings, and an array of cheerful, often brightly colored cocktails, all enjoyed within a consistently lively, buzzing, and energetically social atmosphere. For many, TGI Fridays was the quintessential backdrop for casual celebrations, after-work unwinding, and spontaneous get-togethers. But in a contemporary world where consumer preferences, social norms, and economic realities are changing at an almost dizzying pace, a critical question arises. Does this once iconic casual dining chain, a stalwart of American mall culture and suburban nightlife for decades, still possess the necessary ingredients, the appeal, the relevance, the value proposition, to stay afloat and remain a significant player in today's hyper-competitive restaurant landscape? The unvarnished truth, according to a wealth of industry data and observant analysts, is that TGI Fridays is currently facing a profound operational and identity crisis, a challenging predicament that perhaps few might have foreseen during its heyday. Founded way back in 1965, the chain was, for a very considerable period, an undisputed symbol of American casual dining culture, pioneering many of the elements that came to define the segment, such as flair bartending and a focus on a bar-centric social experience. However, in more recent years, it has been grappling with sharp and persistent declines in both crucial metrics of overall revenue and, equally concerning, customer foot traffic to its numerous locations. According to detailed industry analysis provided by IBISWorld, TGI Fridays' system-wide revenue experienced a notable drop of over 4% in the past fiscal year alone. This decline is particularly stark when contrasted with the performance of some of its direct competitors in the casual dining space, such as Applebee's, despite its own struggles, and Chili's, which during the same period reportedly managed to at least hold their financial position steady, if not achieve modest growth. This comparative underperformance strongly suggests that TGI Fridays is progressively losing its status as the preferred or even a primary go-to spot for relaxed, friendly, and value-oriented group meals. And it is crucial to note that this decline is not for a lack of trying on the part of the company's management. Over the past several years, the chain has diligently rolled out a variety of promotional offers, attempted to refresh and modernize aspects of its extensive menu, and even undertaken significant and costly initiatives to revamp its overall branding and marketing strategies in an effort to reconnect with consumers. However, despite these concerted efforts, the tangible results, as reflected in sales figures and customer engagement, have largely fallen short of expectations and have failed to reverse the underlying negative trends. In a rapidly and fundamentally evolving food industry, TGI Fridays has visibly struggled to effectively adapt its long-standing business model and core offerings to align with modern dining trends and contemporary consumer expectations. Today's consumers, particularly younger demographics and those who are more health-conscious or culinarily adventurous, are not merely or primarily craving the kind of big, often greasy, and typically calorie-laden meals that historically formed the backbone of TGI Fridays' menu. Instead, there is a clear and growing demand for dishes that are perceived as being lighter, fresher, made with higher quality ingredients, and more attuned to health-conscious dietary preferences. Yet, TGI Fridays, despite some menu adjustments, continues to rely heavily on its traditional, indulgent staples, an array of burgers, racks of ribs, loaded potato skins, and various fried appetizers. Items that, for an increasing segment of the modern dining public, no longer fully match their evolving expectations or lifestyle choices. This palpable disconnect between the chain's core offerings and current consumer desires is one of the primary reasons why TGI Fridays is finding it increasingly difficult to effectively compete against the rising stars of the contemporary restaurant scene. Newer, more agile, and often more focused concepts, such as the Better Burger chain, Shake Shack, or the health-oriented fast casual leader Sweetgreen, are successfully capturing market share by offering a compelling combination of appealing flavor profiles, a demonstrable commitment to health and ingredient quality, a focus on sustainability where possible, and a clear, resonant, and authentic brand identity, attributes that TGI Fridays often struggles to convincingly project. If TGI Fridays fails to more effectively and authentically differentiate itself in the crowded marketplace, especially in crucial areas such as significant menu innovation that embraces current trends and the creation of a more compelling and contemporary customer experience, it faces the very real and imminent risk of soon becoming just another nostalgic name relegated to the history books of American dining. What's more, the escalating burden of operational costs is undeniably adding to the immense pressure on the chain's financial viability. With its extensive and historically established network of predominantly large footprint brick-and-mortar restaurant locations, many of which are situated in high-rent commercial areas or shopping malls, TGI Fridays is encumbered by substantial fixed overhead expenses. These expenses, including rent, utilities, and maintenance, are becoming increasingly difficult to justify and sustain, particularly amidst the backdrop of persistently rising labor costs within the service industry and the ongoing inflationary pressures that impact everything from ingredient procurement to energy prices. The traditional full-service sit-down restaurant market is, by most accounts, currently oversaturated with an abundance of choices available to consumers. In this intensely competitive landscape, it is proving exceedingly tough for a legacy brand like TGI Fridays to retain the unique appeal and market magnetism it once commanded so effortlessly. While the brand undoubtedly still enjoys a degree of loyalty from a base of longtime customers who have fond memories associated with it, it is abundantly clear that TGI Fridays must undertake a profound and potentially painful transformation if it genuinely desires to remain a relevant and viable player in the modern restaurant game. This imperative transformation would necessarily entail a comprehensive reinvention of its menu to better reflect contemporary tastes and dietary preferences, a fundamental redefining of its core brand identity to resonate with today's values, and a strategic realignment of its entire operational model and customer experience to meet the evolving demands of the 21st century consumer. So, the critical and lingering question remains, can TGI Fridays successfully reinvent itself, and can it do so in time to avert a further, potentially irreversible decline? Or will it ultimately be overtaken and rendered obsolete by more agile, forward-thinking, and consumer-attuned rivals, thereby becoming yet another prominent casualty of the ongoing modern food revolution that continues to reshape how, where, and what America eats? As this video wraps up, we'd like to remind you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is vital for our channel's growth and helps us keep creating content. To be notified about new videos, remember to hit that bell icon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.